Hello there. Welcome this week's episode. Wasn't sure if it was going to work there or not, so I got surprised. We're back.
That might have been the worst intro of the show. That was pretty bad.
It was pretty. Hey, you guys just sit there on your phones. You hand me the keyboard last minute. That's how it's going to go sometimes. But we are here. We are live. This week's episode of Tampa Fishing Outfitters Live Fishing Report.
Sponsored by
Tampa Fishing
Outfitters.
Outfitters. You got it. We've got Rick Liles back with us. Good to have you, my friend. We've even got Jason Prieto back.
Hey, I make a rare sighting every once
in a while. You need to.
Making sure
we got the comments live.
Keeping you guys in line.
We're going to be talking quite a bit tonight. We got our fishing reports.
Yeah.
We're going to go over kind of some bait talk, some fishing talk, and
bridge etiquette.
Boat etiquette. Been a hot topic this weekend. And we're going to talk some mackerel, some king macs, some Spanish macs. And
different techniques, basic stuff.
Big macs. 2 for $5 right now, by the way.
Oh God, that's paying. They're giving you a discount to kill yourself early.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Gotta love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about our fishing and keep you guys dialed in on what to expect this week.
Yeah, we got this little front that kind of came through today. You fished today, right?
Yeah, it was a little off. We I had 6-year-old on the boat, so it was a little handicap with fishing a little bit. But caught plenty of snook. Not catching a lot of reds, getting them here and there. Hadn't done a whole lot of trout fishing. I'm doing what I do, and that's snook fishing. I like the snook fish.
Yeah.
I don't know. But fishing's been good. The bait's been still a little bit of a chore this year, but it doesn't surprise me. We had red tide last year. I'm not an expert by any means, but I can promise you we lost a lot of breeder baits.
Sure.
A lot of our breeder bait fish, I think, probably on offshore died from the red tide, and I think we're probably seeing some results of that. Thinner schools of bait on various areas, and we're going to cover it later. But of course, when you have all the guides and fishermen and one part of the bay getting bait, and that part of the bay just happens to be pretty popular with landlubbers.
Yeah,
it typically leads
makes it
to
tough.
Yeah, there's always dingbats in every group, unfortunately.
Beanbags.
Yeah, there we go. But yeah, we're gonna go a little bit on etiquette, bridge etiquette, bait versus a pier fisherman, and maybe we can help a few people out, because what I've never understood about fishing, I think it's a little bit different with us because we make a living on the water, but people in general, Rick, and is that they go to the water to fish to get away from screaming, yelling, headaches,
stress,
the everyday stress. But yet people create stress over what? Somebody's in your way?
Yeah.
I mean, it comes to a point where it's like, for us, it is stressful because we're working. We're actually, people say, well, you're fishing. No, we're actually working. It's totally, I can tell you my what I thought guiding was going to be like is totally not that way when I first started guiding. I know you're the same way, and you're probably the same way. It's a stressful job if you want to be successful at it. But the average Joe that's out there just fishing, that's your time to get away from stress. I mean, if you want to get in a yelling match, just go to work and piss your boss off. Or, piss your wife off.
There's cut somebody in line at Walmart.
Yeah, there's plenty of places to get in a screaming match. We're going to go over that a
lot
bit.
of it, we want to talk about it because I think a lot of it can be avoided.
For sure.
What I see for the most part, well, we'll get into it. Let's talk fishing, man.
Yeah. Well,
Rick, you got some big red.
One big red.
That's
one big red
though.
today was just a total fluke.
Uh-huh.
We were lighting up the snook, and all of a sudden we catch a red. Hadn't caught a red there in 2 years.
Really?
Just a spot that I don't normally catch reds. But yeah, it was a nice, beautiful. It was just golden orange. It was
I saw the picture. Cool,
and it didn't really do it the justice. But yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful redfish. It was so orange that if this fish swam by the boat within 20 feet, you would catch it out of your peripheral. It was so bright.
Wow.
But yeah, fishing's been good. I was in Georgia last week. I came back Friday. I fished Saturday and today. So that's all I got to go by from last Monday. And but no problem catching fish. My problem is still bait. You know,
Yeah.
I'm struggling catching bait, and it's you know, I just learned a triple load, and I'm just not.
When you don't get bait, it's triple the load.
Well, I mean, I'm having trouble. What I can't do yet is, because I just did the old crackers throw for so many years, I know how to roll up to a marker,
Get it going, load it, and
load it, work my boat,
yeah.
throw, and with the triple load, I can't do that.
Yeah.
It takes me longer, and I'm trying to figure it out. So, I really, using the triple load method, I really need to anchor to catch bait. And
Yeah.
today it just was tough. So I ended up just going back to the old cracker load throwing and got it today and just
Made it work.
made it work.
I meant to.
But,
I remember the last time we were together and made a bait run. I wanted to show you the way, because I think you're going under and I'm going over. I'll tell you what, that made a big difference for me because I've always thrown the way you're talking about,
Yeah.
the old cracker way or
Right.
whatever you call it. But it's kind of hard on your body, and it doesn't open all the way with the bigger net sometimes.
Right. Yeah.
For me, it didn't anyways. I'm sure there's better cast net throwers out there.
Well,
but
I'm
for
not
me,
one of those guys.
but learning that triple load, I'm telling you, was wreaked a lot less havoc on my back.
100. I can tell that. I'm just not
Well,
proficient yet. You know. Now when I anchor at the bridge, I've had no trouble with it.
yeah.
You know.
But doing the marker
But
rodeo,
the marker rodeo is you know,
Well-
and it's just something that's going to come with time.
Yeah.
You know, I'll get it. It's just this is all new to me, and
hey Chris,
it's you know,
I've tried the triple load. I liked it. It was easier to throw. I ended up going back to the way I threw it because I started getting tendinitis real bad to the point where I couldn't squeeze my hand, and I just kind of assumed it was holding that net the way I was holding it. For whatever reason, I was irritating my arm. I actually thought about going back to it because what I did notice is that it is easier to throw it that way.
well, I'm
you
doing
can't-
something wrong with the actual loading of it.
Yep.
Because I'm throwing, it's opening, but it's egg. It's not round, you know.
Mhm.
And I know I'm getting, you know, once you throw it over your shoulder and you split that net, I'm getting too much one way or the other. And I've tried, well, a little more, a little less.
Yeah.
Tried a little less on the shoulder, a little, and I've just, when you're out there
You can't
in the
fix
heat
it
of the
when you're out
battle
there.
catching, you know, it's like
Yeah.
it's like being a golfer.
Yeah.
You don't
You're not
fix your
fixing it on the
problems
eighth
on
hole.
the course. you do that at the range. So
Maybe that's been my problem.
that's probably it.
Yeah. I can, and we can go out there and
But,
figure it out. I do it with these guys who come in.
Yeah,
all the
I mean,
time.
I
it's like fixing a golf.
well,
shot.
Travis showed me. What did he say?
Captain Snap Fitness.
Oh,
That's what
got
I
it.
kind of took it as. I don't know.
Yeah, you guys are going. Oh, you guys are like going under the arm and over. I just go straight over the top, man. I don't mess with any of that, and it makes it a lot easier to get it loaded. That was always awkward feeling for me.
Yeah, maybe I'm trying to think how to do it. Maybe it's
Usually people are telling you to go under and then throw it over your shoulder. I just go straight over your shoulder. I skip that.
I can I throw it over my
don't
knee,
know.
which is I guess cracker style.
Yeah, double load. They call it. I
Yeah.
always called it double load.
it's where you
I-
put
there-
the lead in your
there's-
mouth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. I Travis had got me throwing it the way he threw it, and it worked good. But like I said, my tendinitis got, and I don't know if it was just coincidence. I would like to go back to that way. The problem is I forgot how to load it, which it would come to me pretty fast. And I threw it I started throwing it really good like that. I picked it up pretty fast. The problem with the way he throws it, and Travis throws the net excellent, but what I did notice is you can't. Well, at least
You're
I
about
could
to, You're
not.
about to say what I'm going to tell you. What I do.
I could
makes
not.
it
You
different.
can't get distance.
Right. If you don't go under your shoulder, I feel like it's less resistance off this because that's what's landing right there on your trolling motor or the back of the boat
Is
cowling
that's
or whatever.
the tail
that's
end of
that's
the net.
what's on your shoulder
Okay.
generally. So going over the top, there's nothing. There's not a lot keeping it there. There's like no elbow over it. I don't know how to explain it without having a net.
I'd like to try
Wish we
your
had
way.
a net, but
yeah.
anyways, but yeah, I can, and I had the same problem at first, but once I got comfortable with the triple, now I can toss it as far.
Yeah,
as I
you
need
throw
to.
a net great.
Yeah.
I can throw a net good. It's weird. I can tell the way I throw it puts more fatigue on my lower back. But
you got a coil. You got a coil and
you got to do a twist. Well, that and when you're holding the net, you're holding it in front. It's like doing if you're doing shrugs at the gym like this.
Yeah.
If you take them and do them like this, which works out good, but you put a lot of stress on your lower back because the weight's in front of you. Yeah. So it's I want to go back to that just because my tendonitis is not as bad, and it did seem like it was easier to throw the bigger nets.
Yeah.
I would tell you this, that I found a happy medium, and I can tell you I've got a 12, just dropped the 12 off to get fixed, and I got an 11. And
it's like a whole other net, isn't it? It's like
no, I think they're similar, and I don't have any.
No, problem. I mean in terms of how
it's just
throwing
easier
that
to deal with.
You know what I think about when I go from like a 12 to an 11 or something to a smaller net is like the baseball players who put that lead donut on their bat.
Yeah.
It's like when you take that off, how the bat feels lighter. That's how the 11 feels.
The 11, I don't know. It feels the same.
But you still get results.
It's not the weight of the net. It feels about the same. I haven't not been able to get bait with it. It's just there's less grabbing of net to do, and it's not small like a 10. So I'm actually preferring I've got two 11s in my boat. I dropped the 12 off. I can pancake a 12.
They're heavy.
It takes more effort.
20-pound net.
But there's not a time where I said, well, I got it with the 12, but I couldn't get it with the 11. I guess is what I'm saying. So I really like the 11-foot net that I got, but. There's times a lot of net opening will come with fatigue for me. So, you're saying open the net. So if your back's hurting, you will naturally compensate.
The more throws you do, the smaller they get. But mine is just I just got to get
you got to get the muscle memory.
I just got to figure out that load that I need.
Sweet spot.
That's what I mean.
So
once I get that load, and I just haven't done it yet. Now, when it comes to throwing the cracker style, no problem.
I like splitting it over my knee on the flats too, because the grass stays down there versus throwing it all over yourself.
Yeah.
So there's two, and with a 10-foot shallow, I could throw that. I could sling that thing.
Doesn't matter how you really.
Yeah, I really don't. So it just depends. I want to go back to the triple load. I like to try the way you do it.
Yeah.
Travis does it. He does these little things that I'm sure work better, but I know how Travis is.
You'll notice
he
we
likes
throw
to tweak it to the.
Travis and I throw almost the exact same way, except for how we put it over our shoulder.
Yeah, and he does some crazy stuff with his elbow and stuff, and I'm thinking I didn't try to bypass that. It was kind of a little bit complicated at times, but I'd like because I know you can do some of that without doing it. And again, here's the deal with everybody gets ate up with throwing nets nowadays. Yeah, it's cool. You open it. It is a little bit self-gratitude when you pancake it. When I throw that thing and it brings bait up,
I don't care what it looks like.
All I care about is seeing.
All I care about is when I bring
white
that
at the horn.
I'll tell you this: I got in a conversation with another captain on the water, and it was a grind. There was that one. I think it was. I don't know what day it was, but it was a grind, man. We were everyone out there was throwing a lot. Anybody who said they came up and won and done it, I didn't see it happen. But the guy was sitting right next to my boat. I think it was Kenny. It was Kenny Smith, and he. I had just got done. Like you get that feeling you're done. You get to start hosing the boat down, and he's not getting anything. And I get real superstitious. Like if I whack the bait, and as I'm pulling in, I see all that bait in the horn, I don't let go of the rope and put it down.
Yeah.
I keep coiling it until I see that, and then when I see it, that's when I can put the rope down. And I saw him.
Into your bait. I don't think
I saw him coiling it up and throwing it down before he could see the horn. And I was like, dude, that's bad luck. I was like, you gotta keep that rope coiled. And you can't put it on the deck of your boat until you see the bait in there. If you don't see the bait in there, you keep it in your hand. And he was like, what? I was like, I'm telling you. And needless to say, he coiled that thing up and waited to see the bait to the next one. But, yeah, it was just funny. I get superstitious with it. But, yeah, there's nothing better pulling that net up when it's tough and you got that bait around. It's like swimming out the horn of the net.
When they're squeezing out like toothpaste, you got it.
Yeah, Bob, I was just thinking that is, that might be because – I'm sure that the struggles we're all talking about here with cast nets, I can promise you everyone else is having that same deal. So maybe it is time for a video.
I'll tell you this is that too, and I don't really understand it. If I'm anchored up, chumming, deep water, throwing my big net, I'll throw it good. But if I'm throwing on the roll, throw it way better. I don't know if it's the stress of me having to get back to the shifter. If I'm sliding into a marker or whatever, I'll throw a pancake on a 12-footer. If I throw my 12 off the back after chumming,
maybe because you're throwing it more instinctively than just
yeah,
you're thinking about it less.
it's weird. Like
you got the whole dance floor up there, and in the back of the boat sometimes you got power poles and consoles and.
I have a lot more control with the cracker weight too of the net.
Yeah,
me too.
A lot more
Absolutely.
control. It does take more effort though. But again, I haven't.
Well,
if I'd grown up throwing it that way, it might be different.
I don't feel like that anymore, but I did feel like it when I first switched because I went from 20 years of doing it one way to all of a sudden when bait became the job. Like you got to get it every day, and you start throwing that net 10 times a day. I was like, I got to do something different, or because this isn't gonna. I'm not gonna be able to keep going. And when I made that change, it was frustrating, man. It's like that thing where they tell you it's gonna get worse before it gets better.
That's what I'm going.
I was hanging my net on my trolling motor. I was getting it tangled trying to load it, but I just went through it. Now it's like throwing the net doesn't even bother me really anymore. Pulling it in and unloading the bait is what gets me, not the act of throwing the net. It's
I almost caught a client today.
Nice.
Yeah, you got a little too close.
well, we're gonna
the bait grind is real, boys.
Yeah.
It's been challenging for us to do it every day. This year is just I did hear there's a little bit of bait on the flat starting to show up. I haven't personally.
Yeah, I've been hearing it sporadically from different folks, and in all parts of the bay too, not just like been hearing it out in the St. Pete area, been hearing it South Shore, I've been hearing it Upper Bay, so I'm sure it's about to happen.
Rule of thumb, it shows up in St. Pete before it shows up anywhere.
Yeah.
I think being closer to the Gulf, that bait moves around a little bit faster.
I'll tell you what, I'm seeing more and more boats setting up catching bait in the flats in the morning than I have been on my run out there. So I just like the Skyway I like the Skyway. I like the bait it provides. I like the limited mess.
I like it on outgoing tide.
Really, I like it on incoming.
You know why I like it on outgoing?
Because they can't fish on that
side?
side?
Fish on the side.
You don't have to deal with it.
Yeah.
And trust me, and we're going to talk about it later, I understand what their thought process is. I get it.
Oh, I do too.
Everybody's wrong. Everybody's wrong.
It's right.
Well, nobody's right. Nobody's right.
They have just as much a right to that water as we do.
Well, it's like
the problem is when you get, like just the other day, I was anchored up, or through anchor, incoming water. I'm letting anchor line out, drifting back to a stall that I went in and rodeoed bait the first time just to
test the waters.
Go back out, drop anchor. I'm going into the stall, and the guy comes over, drops his line. And I'd already made my mind up when I saw him walking that way. I knew what his intentions were going to be. I'm going to throw this net here, regardless of this guy. Because I've been yelled at before, and I've yelled at people before.
Fix Mike, somebody.
It's not a I don't take it personal when I get yelled at. So I figured if me and this guy get in a little shouting match, we're just going to get in a shouting match. But what he was doing is he was just trying to sabiki right there until I got in. Then he walked over and he was out of the way. He didn't make an issue of it.
Right.
So he saw me catch bait. So he come over. And he sabiki'd while I was doing it, and I get that.
Yeah.
And just like you said earlier, look, that guy right there, send me your bucket down if I'm getting it.
Oh, yeah.
Hook you up.
I'll put more bait than you can sabiki in it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I had a guy, we talk about the bat a lot, but I had to go to the end one day, and I got out there, and they were on the last half of the end. So the first I said, hey, man, I said, you mind if I slide in here, put my trolling motor down, put the rotor in GPS mode, and I said, you mind if I do this? And he's like, no, you're cool, man. I said, all right. I said, I'll stay out of your way. So I said, I'll tell you, if I whack this bait, I'll give you some. I sat there and was getting bait. We had a conversation. He was a cool dude, and he's like, yeah, man. He's like, people get all mad. I said, oh, man.
Well, most of them are nice like that.
I said, I need to get bait, and I'll be out of your way. I said, unfortunately, and I told the one guy, I said, this whole bridge looks real big. I said, the problem is right now the bait is all at the end. Otherwise, I would be on the other side.
As far away as I can get.
Yeah.
In fact, I wouldn't even be at the bridge if I didn't have to be.
Right. This is like, I've got to get bait, and I've got to go do my job, and you want to go fishing, so let me try to help you out if you help me out. And I think if people take that approach, you will you'll be a lot better off. Unfortunately, I had a guy telling me that we were sitting there getting bait one day, and buddy of mine was with me, and we were trying to get bait, and he comes over. He was in the wrong. I was there, and I didn't say anything. I'm like, whatever, And he said something, and I said, man, I don't know what to tell you. And he said, well, I just don't give it. Damn, I just got out of jail. My one buddy, which he goes, somehow or another, just don't surprise me.
That's funny. My observation, so I'm not going to lie, I've gotten bait there every trip I run this year, which is a lot for me. And I don't, particularly mind it. I've been catching bait there my whole life, so I'm actually probably more accustomed to catching bait there, especially when I was just a weekend guy who fished on the weekends. I didn't waste time going anywhere else because I didn't have the time. You got to there are a lot of similarities to it. I don't want to waste time. I'll bypass, 50-50 shots at bait or whatever, or tough bait, just to go to the bridge just to get it done.
Right.
But this year in particular, my observation has been this. Monday through Thursday, it's a non-issue. There's a lot less of us getting bait. There's a lot less people fishing. It boils down to the crowds. And what I see is I don't see anybody intentionally or consciously saying, I don't care if that guy's there or not, I'm going to catch bait. I think everyone's trying to do their best to avoid one another. The angler up top, the guy down the bottom, the weekend guy, unless maybe somebody's just completely oblivious that people are fishing. But I don't even see that often. Right. And I've put a lot of time in there to witness it and come up with that assessment. Sometimes things are unavoidable, and I know it sucks. I know it sucks if we grab their line for our prop, and I know it sucks to be the guy. I've had it happen to me. Listen, I mean, we grew up in Tampa. We've all fished the Skyway Pier a lot. You've had your line wrapped. I just don't know the hostility, but what I can tell you is that for the most part, the boaters are trying to identify a place they can go in and either set up and catch bait, or they're rodeoing it in a place they don't think they're going to interfere with it.
Right.
And when it happens, it's generally an accident. And I think if everybody keeps that in mind, even though it is a frustrating situation for both parties, a lot of the boil over, the spillover, or the hostility could be avoided. Because I don't see anybody, and that goes for the anglers too, I don't see them actively trying to make a conflict.
We had a guy
I've had it happen,
but, sure,
but not normally.
I'm saying rule of thumb.
Like you said, we had a guy that it was kind of tight, and there was an open stall, so I slid it on my trolling motor, and a buddy of mine slid over, and the guy walks over after we've already got in there and starts fishing right there. And I'm like, hey, that's fine, but if your line starts getting hung in my net, you came where I was. I have just as much right as you have as just much right to be there. So, and you know what? At the end of the day, maybe we can put this out there to say, if you start throwing stuff at somebody, I don't care if you're in a boat or you're on land.
That's crossing.
And somebody calls the cops, you're going to jail.
Right.
That's throwing objects.
And that has happened.
Regardless
if you throw punches, you're going to.
If you throw something, or
so let's really, and at that point, really just you need to take a step back and think, is this even worth it? You're out there fishing and you start throwing stuff at somebody.
Yes, that happens.
It's not worth it. It's stupid. It's childish.
Yeah.
The stuff that goes on out there sometimes is just, it's not even worth it. Okay. And Ty, I can see your frustration. It happens. But at the end of the day, sometimes you just go about your way and go the other way. Because getting in a shouting match, first off, if you're in a boat and they're on the pier, you're already at a disadvantage. They're in the air, they can be throwing stuff at you. And it's pretty hard. You got to be pretty determined to get on that bridge to handle your business.
But it's happened.
Yeah, I like that.
But I mean, you got to be determined. Rick, I don't know. I think me or you personally might be out of breath by the time we made it to the end.
I guarantee you.
It is not worth it.
I will be fueled by anger.
Not worth it.
Yeah.
So, so I don't know what the advice is other than keep a level head and just
don't be an idiot.
Take an extra minute or two to look into how you're approaching it. And it doesn't matter if we're talking about from a boat or from fishing the pier. Observe your surroundings and really ask, am I Is what I'm doing cool or not? Like, would I be pissed if I was on the other side? If you just put yourself in the other guy's shoes,
right?
I think anybody's bright enough to make their own assessment and say.
I would argue that point. I don't think everybody's bright enough.
I like to think, yeah. I mean, I get it.
Yeah.
I certainly get it. There's a lot of that out there, but I like to believe that everybody's capable of it. So
there was something else going through Facebook too, and I just shook my head about. There's a fight and people were recording. I'm like, you're fishing.
Right.
Like, I don't get it. Like, is that what it's gone to?
Right. This is supposed to be enjoyment.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the fight. I don't even want to go there.
Yeah, but I mean, just that with the bridge stuff, and it just doesn't add up to me. You can do that other places, So just respect one another. I mean, fishermen, since I've been a kid, for the most part, have been respectful to each other.
That's what I love about it. When it's like the unwritten. The client asked me, passing every boat I'm passing.
Yeah.
Giving them the signal, and they're like, "How many people you know?" I was like, "I don't know any of them."
I wave at every boat too.
Wave at everybody I see.
That's what you do.
That's the boaters. That's the unwritten code. Yeah. Give them the okay.
Yeah.
Everything's cool. It's just, I don't know. I'm a big believer in karma. So
I think some of that comes with our industry has blown up so much in the last 10 years. I would have never thought that business would support our guide industry the way it is now, but it does. Would never thought to see the industry just blow up to the size that it has, which is a good thing. But with good also comes bad. And I think some of the bad is crowded areas, people getting very protective over their fishing spots, so to speak. And with all that comes bickering. So, but guys, just take this. If you get anything out of this show, just take a deep breath sometimes. Take a look at stuff. Is it really worth it? Maybe handle it a little different than what your first instinct would tell you to do, which leads to worse stuff, which could lead to get thrown in jail if you're throwing stuff at people.
Yeah.
So, and you never know what the other guy's got in his boat or on that pier.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, yes.
I mean, if you start throwing stuff at people, expect stuff to get thrown back or whatever. It's just not worth it.
Well, the one incident that I told y'all about was the guy on the bridge threw a hammer. And I won't mention any names, but he's a captain out of Manatee County. Threw a hammer at him.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this particular captain had a pellet gun on his boat that he'd been thinning the seagull herd with.
Mm-hmm.
So he just pulls the pellet gun out and returns fire. Well, the guy called the cops. The cops show up, and the guy that threw the hammer got escorted off. The guy with the pellet gun and his two lawyers he had in the boat went fishing.
Well,
yeah, it's tough, man. It's tough. But anyhow, everybody have fun.
Well, let's transition over to what most people are probably up on that bridge trying to get.
Kingfish.
We said we were going to talk kingfish a little bit.
Are we running any commercials today?
No.
Do we want to battle
This is a
that?
commercial-free episode. This is like Netflix.
Yeah, this is you're getting a bonus tonight.
This is like a Netflix edition of our show.
Nice.
Where you just get 55 straight minutes of fish. Well, let me not say fish talk. You're going to get some fish talk within the 55 minutes that you're watching without commercials.
What was the commercial going to be? Do we know?
Probably a Humpback Cast Net or a Tampa Fishing Outfitters commercial.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll mention them. We'll do a live mention.
Tampa Fishing Outfitters is a great shop.
The truth is, me and James are afraid to touch the computer.
Yeah, we just don't want to.
We're scared we're going to bomb.
We're scared.
And Humpback Cast Nets will catch you bait.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. As other cast nets, but we don't want to go exclusive, but we do like the humpbacks. By the way, the new horn, how's that working out? I've seen one.
I love it. You don't have one?
No.
All right, we got to get some. They're trickling in.
They look pretty cool.
We're not going to go into it right now, but let me just say that the humpback horn's always been, about a 2.5 inch total diameter, and it's gotten a lot bigger.
Well, that's my problem then. I just need the bigger horn.
Yeah, I've got one. I think Travis has one. There are a couple that have trickled in.
This
and
is
people
all
have
starting to make
upon
sense
them.
now.
Yeah, but I'm telling you, it makes.
That's why the net's not opening all this time. Rick, we didn't have the right horn on it.
I didn't have the right horn.
Ernie says, hopefully Jason's going to take me trolling for Kings this weekend.
Yeah,
I happen to know that one of Jason's favorite activities is trolling.
Well, he actually says Kongs.
Yeah.
Well, I've learned
definitely not going to catch that.
I've learned this week that when you put Kings in on Ernie, I guarantee you have an iPhone. That I know. Because every time I put in Kings, I'm sending out Kongs.
So serious.
Yeah.
So my clients are like, what do you mean Kongs? I'm like,
King Kong.
Kings, man. We call them Kongs. But yeah, that is the.
There you go.
Look at you guys.
So Siri doesn't fish, obviously.
Ernie,
No,
I know you got an
Siri's not a
iPhone, man.
fisherman.
That's too funny. But let's talk kingfishing. It's not one of my forte. I do it when it's like on fire.
Yeah.
But I definitely don't pursue them when it's not on fire. So Rick,
I don't kingfish anymore because I just don't trailer my boat.
We have
But-
a lot in common.
But when I was trailering my boat a lot, I enjoy kingfishing.
kingfishing's fun.
I don't troll for them,
Uh-huh.
but I'd hit that 7 Mile reef
Mm-hmm.
and get some chum going, and man, there's some nice kingfishing in this area.
There is. They're thick right now. I bumped into somebody Sunday who I know on the water, younger guy, great fisherman, Vincent, and he was coming out of where I was going in to pick my people up, and he's like, "What are you getting into?" I said, the snook and redfish deal, and he's like, "I'm about to get on these kings." And I said, "Man, I got a little jealous." And when I saw him later that day and what he put in the boat, he put in some studs, and I promise you he ain't go far.
Well, answer Ray, are kingfish good eating? They're excellent eating if you prepare them right. Stake them out. The best fish I've ever had. I'm telling you, my neighbor's a professional chef. He's a retired professional chef.
Which means he knows how to make bad tasting stuff
Dude,
good.
I brought him a kingfish one time. It was the best fish I've ever had in my life.
Ray,
I
don't
like
believe
it when
him.
it's done right.
I'm telling you, it's good.
When it's staked, I like it, and I am
Rick also likes
a
mullet.
sucker.
I do like mullet.
Yeah, there
But
you
it's
go.
a process.
Yeah, I'm not a mullet.
Point take.
It was
Point.
It was a
Point given,
process,
point
though.
taken.
He brined it for
Yeah.
5 hours, and then he brined it overnight, and then he soaked it in Italian dressing for 5 hours and put it on the grill at noontime because I brought it in the night before. And I had my veterinarian, Rich Kane, fishing with me that day. And when we came in, my neighbor come over and says, "Here's," and he gave me like 3 of the kingfish steaks. And my neighbor, Dr. Kane, or my client, Dr. Kane, said, "This is the best fish I've ever had in my life."
Yeah.
And I agreed with it.
They can be good. I mean,
You just never had them cooked right, brother. I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Dude, if I got to do that many
first
steps.
off, nobody can tell me they're not down for some good smoked kingfish dip.
I don't know. I've never had the dip.
I've never had the dip.
Never had dip. Ray, you
If
can
it's as
actually
good as
get them
mullet
in the
dip-
bay occasionally.
If
There
this
are
is good
some
as mullet
kings.
dip, it's got to be pretty darn good.
You can get them right off the beaches too, Ray.
Yeah.
I don't do a lot of it anymore. It's too much of a pain, to be honest with you, from a charter standpoint. I used to run some kingfish trips. I burned a lot of fuel. I charged more for it, but it averaged out, and then I would end up canceling trips when I could run inshore because of weather. Yeah, so basically they taste like
Exactly.
I don't think so.
But I don't care. Hey, listen.
I don't think
we
he
do
hit
that
the
to chicken
taste.
wings. I see people do it to steak. It's
Yeah.
whatever
He
you
just-
like,
I mean, he marinated
I don't do it
it.
to steak. That's
He marinated
blasphemy.
it, but once
Yeah.
it was marinated, he put it on the
Dude, it
grill.
was a
with-
6-hour process to make it taste good.
Yeah.
I just like stuff that naturally tastes good.
Well, hold on. Ribs is a 6-hour process to
Yeah,
make them
I
taste
mean,
good.
I
tell
yeah,
you
it was
this, you
good.
ain't just
It was
throwing them
good.
on the grill at 400 degrees in 20 minutes.
I don't eat
eating them.
I eat ribs, but I don't cook them. That takes too long.
All right. So we got the recipe down. How did you? What are some kingfish tips, man? We got questions here about how far out.
Throw the hook, or in my case, the trolling motor, drop the rod in,
Well,
light them up with chum, get on some hard bottom,
Pretty much it.
yeah.
and
Use some
let them
big
eat.
long shank hooks like that right there.
I like the and we
50
should I
pound
should have got
leader.
one. These long shanks work great. A lot of people don't know about this. I thought a lot of people did, but they really don't. But these are the long shank hooks Rick's talking about. You can see them.
And
there.
these are more a mackerel size. We're going to talk about Spanish mackerel too.
Yeah.
So you're probably not going to go after a 40-pound king with a 1-aught.
I typically use a stinger rig,
Yeah.
or I'll do like you said. I'll tie in wire with 2 single hooks.
Yep.
Because the stinger rig can be annoying if you hook one.
Yeah.
All right, Garrett. We're friends again.
But you just find some hard bottom. I mean, they run up and down the beaches, and they'll get offshore too. But structure, hard bottom.
The nice thing is when it comes to kingfish, there's a lot of real estate. Now, there's some really, really good real estate, and that's where all the boats tend to be.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of it. I mean, honestly, we have this question: how far out? I mean,
Look for the wrapped
you can go
yellowfins.
Yeah, look for the wrapped yellowfins. But you can start at the Skyway and just go out towards Egmont. You can go out to the 7 Mile, like you said. You can go out to the beaches, out in front of the Don Cesar. I mean, there really isn't a wrong place, especially I found in the spring. That's like when I like to do it, that you can be. But I'll tell you what you want to be looking for, and that's a lot of bird activity. That's a lot of bait activity. And have your head on a swivel as you're approaching anywhere you're going, because a lot of times what I found is I actually end up kingfishing before I get to whatever my destination was, because I'll see a fish sky or something. So
yeah, keep your eyes
look out for
open.
that. Keep your eyes open while you're approaching where you're going to fish and while you're fishing, because a lot of times that will tell you what you need to know. You'll see a school, birds working the surface over here, even though I'm going this way. Well, boom, I'm going to check that out.
You will see them skying.
Well, you got some spoons here, so.
Well, these are mackerel spoons, but these are smaller sizes of them.
I guarantee a kingfish will hit that.
Oh yeah, kingfish will hit it. I mean, let's get into some of the artificial stuff we can do. This is actually just up here because I was using it to write a fishing report. I was using this table to do that. So this wasn't for the show, but this will work. That'll definitely work. You can troll spoons. When I troll spoons, instead of a lot of people use planers, right? I found them to be a pain. I hate when they foul or trip. I didn't bring one up with me, but we have something called a trolling lead. You ever seen those?
Dude, if it's got to do with trolling.
All right, so a trolling lead, unlike a planer. So when you're trolling these spoons, you're trying to get them deeper. You're trying not to let them ride the surface, especially when we start to get into a chop. A lot of times the spoon's just coming through the water, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. But planers, for me, just take too much management. And when I've got maybe 2 or 3 people who haven't done this before, and I'm driving the boat, watching the lines, I'll only run 2 lines, just having that trolling lead, what it is, it's like a torpedo-shaped lead, and on each end is a swivel. So you can run your main line to the lead, and then just tie off your leader to the spoon, and it never fouls, it never trips, it just gets it down there. It's perfect.
That makes sense versus the planers.
Yeah, the planers work great. Don't let me steer you away. If you're somebody who's got planers dialed in, I'm not saying go to a trolling lead, but sometimes with a lot of this stuff, you need to get it 20, 30 feet below the surface to find those fish. Especially
how much line you put behind the trolling lead?
No matter what I'm doing, I'll be honest, I run a really long leader, at least 30 feet, sometimes 50. Just depends.
So what do you do when you
hand line?
Huh?
You got a hand line at the end of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
the tricky part, but by then the fish is pretty worn and you can generally do it. I mean, the same thing you're doing with a planer. Your options are the same thing. I would tell you probably anybody who's kingfishing and trolling spoons or anything that they need to get below the surface that doesn't have a lip like a plug, you're going to inevitably have to grab that line at some point and get it towards the boat, because they're all running long leaders.
Yeah.
You
20
don't
have
feet.
to run a long leader with a planer.
You don't have to, but I think in kingfishing,
maybe in kingfishing,
it's pretty regular.
My dad used to catch grouper with a planer, and the planer was
that's a lot shorter
that he could net the grouper once he got.
Yep, and I'll do that too. Usually 8 to 10 feet maybe is what I'll do for a grouper, but for the kingfish, it seems like you need a little bit more. And these are things I've learned. But like I said, I don't use a lot of planers.
Right.
But what I have learned is that longer leader, that long stretch of mono, coming from somebody who doesn't, I don't re-spool to mono like a lot of people do for kingfishing. My whole rig, I just use my medium heavy stuff with braid already on it, so that what that mono is actually doing for me more than, I don't think it's the clarity that I'm looking for or that they're leader shy. For me, it's more I need that stretch for the hookups, because I don't go out there with the best kingfish gear. I go out there with the best gear I have that'll catch kings.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think that's what a lot of our viewers might have to go out and do.
And that's probably most people, unless you're into the kingfish for the tournaments and that kind of thing.
I'm not. I don't do the tournaments. I just catch them.
It's just like, I use the same snook gear as I use to trout fish.
Yeah. But I'm not afraid to troll, man. When I get out in an area and I feel like there's a lot of kingfish in there, I don't mind trolling around to do it. But once I get into a good bite, like I've got a few, all right, we're stopping here and we're going to start chumming and we're going to create a frenzy, because that's really, for me, what kingfishing's all about. I want to see fish busting the surface.
And they don't call them smoker kings for nothing.
They don't, man. You get in that, like, I would say like 30 to 30 for the tackle I go out there with. It's like a 30-pound fish or above. You're gonna have a good time, and it's gonna burn some line for sure.
Yeah, they're good fighting fish. They're basically like a big mackerel. I mean, same.
Actually, I think they are.
Yeah, they're same family. Same family. But they're they fight good. They're a pain to deal with. I mean, you got to really.
They're bloody as all heck.
Got to kind of gaff them. I mean, it's work, but they're cool. They're fun. It is nice to get one to skyrocket. You get a big one, and well, I used to do quite a bit of it, more when I trailered, and then I did some when us not trailering now.
I know, because I used to see you out there kingfishing all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it was an easy run when I put in at O'Neill's. I go get bait and run out there, and it wasn't a bad run. But coming from Ruskin now, us being on the water, you get honed in on. There's enough stuff in the bay for me to do. Between the grouper and the snapper and tarpon, there's enough base stuff in there for me to go. I don't need to go run 30 miles to go do catch kingfish.
Yeah.
So now, can you catch them in the bay? Yes, I've caught probably 2 in my lifetime. I don't catch a lot, but there are actually some of the big ones come out of the bay for the king of the beach and all that.
Yeah. Last year we talked about that a little bit last week.
47-incher in the bay.
Yeah. There's some big ones. There's not a lot of them.
No.
You're gonna hit your numbers, out in the Gulf, but.
And I wasn't kingfishing.
So if you're not trolling, then
we were shark
so
fishing.
because I know you don't want to do it. Doesn't sound like you want to do it. And like I said, I will do it, but I'd rather set up my live bait situation. Set the stage for what you're going about out there for somebody who's never done it. I know it sounds simple, just catch bait, throw it, but like what are the?
I would say look for skyrocketing fish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you get in areas that are common areas,
and you can see the bait on top out there. So the bait will just be up on top.
When you say you start chumming, are you chumming live baits? Are you beating the baits up? Are you chunking the baits? Are you
all the above?
Everything.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Throw some down. I mean, you want to hit. It's no different than tarpon fishing. You want to hit all water columns because sometimes they'll be down, sometimes they're up, sometimes they're on the surface. The one thing I can tell you is make it rain. Yeah. I mean, I like to throw a lot of bait because whatever's around in that area, you're going to get them fired up.
And it may take a while for you to get that bite, but with my experience, once you establish that bite, it's just there.
Mm-hmm.
It's just
once you get them, it's just like anything else. Once you get them there,
you're mixing in other fish too.
Yeah,
I mean,
getting some big Spanish, some
gags.
sharks.
If you're offshore, you get some gags.
Yeah.
That's the cool thing about offshore is you get just a
tuna,
bunch of different stuff out there going.
There's tuna, man.
Get bonita. It's all about a fight. I mean, bonita's bloody as all
but sometimes
can be.
Bonita for me, I've had it happen. Kingfishing and a big school of bonitas come in.
Oh God!
And it just wrecks you.
It's
they're fun.
It's nothing but bonita now.
That's right. So then you got to stop chumming.
Yep.
And wait for them to leave, and then try to reestablish.
It's like the Spanish sardines when you're trying to catch whitebait.
Bonita fights so good that I look at them and I'm still puzzled how they can actually pull that hard.
Huh.
Now you know what I have never caught in my life is a tuna.
Really?
I hear tuna fight like that.
Yeah,
probably better.
Better than the bonita, I'd say. I mean,
yeah, really.
Just because they're going to be a little bit bigger. I don't know. Our bonita get pretty big, and our blackfins tend to be, smaller than other places. But a blackfin tuna will wear you out just like a bonita.
Yeah, see, I've never caught tuna. Yeah. I'm not an offshore. The little bit offshore I've done been decent at it. But I've had people on the boat that know more what they're doing than I do, and I've I just mix in what knowledge I have with them and made stuff work. But
when we were coming in, you asked, or I asked a question. I said, "Hey, do you want me to bring anything up? Do we want to go over it?" And I was like, "What are y'all's kingfish rigs?" Expecting it'd be somewhat similar. We all three had kind of different answers. So, like, what's your terminal tackle look like when you're going out and setting up this live bait, this chumming scene? What's tied on the end of the line?
I use my tarpon gear, 50-pound test. 50, 60-pound leader, and I get cut off. I don't use no steel leader. Use hooks bigger than that, but the long shank.
The long shank bigger, so like a 5/0, 6/0.
I mean, that's all I do. It's pretty simple.
Yeah.
I mean, my approach is simple, and we do get cut off, but a lot of times we don't.
Yeah.
So
I get more bites that way too. I'd imagine with no wire.
Probably.
And you.
I don't use I do use my tarpon stuff, but I run 3 series of reels. I got my 2500s to 3000 reels, which are my inshore, and I use a lot of 4000 stuff, and then I got my tarpon stuff, which
from Daiwa, right? or the reels that you've been using.
Yes, 4,000 series
Which
reels.
a 4,000 in the Daiwa is a little bit bigger than your 4,000 Shimano.
I don't know. I haven't used Shimano.
Positive.
Is it?
Yeah, I just want to make sure, because I got to tell people that like a 5,000 BG is a tarpon reel.
Yes.
But a 5,000 Stratic is not a tarpon reel.
Yeah, 4,000 is it's a medium-sized reel, but honestly, the drag tension, it's just a lighter reel.
Yeah.
The drag tension, I think, is about the same as
and
the
it's
5,000.
got the capacity.
Yes.
The line capacity.
Yeah, with braid, braid has
Doesn't
changed
matter.
the game for what you use, because when you use mono years ago, you're using 30-pound mono. It's huge. So yeah, I use the medium-sized stuff. I will bring some bigger stuff. I've never had a 4,000 reel get absolutely spooled to where I couldn't use it. So I just think they're a little bit lighter. I also use them for gag grouper in the bay. I got them spooled 50-pound test.
Ready to
50
roll.
to 60, and I use them because they're just easier to use, and then I got my tarpon stuff.
But you're putting now you said you're putting a stinger rig on for the most part.
Do a stinger, or sometimes I've did the long shank like Rick said. Depends if I'm in mackerels and there's sometimes you get bit off. If you're, that's the problem sometimes out there, is you'll be getting a lot of max and then you'll get that occasional king, which really wrecks you. So sometimes you get stuck in the middle tackle. But I use either or. Little thing I learned from mackerel fishing, which I haven't done a whole lot last couple of years, but I'll tie in a short section of like 40 or 50-pound test to a long shank hook. And sometimes that'll help you with your mackerel bite. I learned that just from trial and error. Me and Danny were mackerel fishing, and sometimes you get the mackerel really nail that, usually 25 or 30-pound leader. So I started tying just a short little section about the width of this board of 40 or 50, and what it did is when they and when they would swipe
you told me that last year, and I started doing that for regular mackerel.
Yep.
Yeah,
I did it too.
Well, I really didn't notice that my bites went down on mackerel. So now on kingfish, I don't know, they're bigger. I really haven't tried that, but on the max, it really does help, because sometimes the long shanks, when they're hitting hard, they'll get above the long shank. And I had a customer one day, I'll never forget this. We're mackerel fishing, we're losing them, and he was persistent on a steel leader. I said, they're not going to bite. He goes, well, let's just try. I said, all right. So I tied steel leader on. I gave him the rod with steel leader, and he didn't catch a fish. And the dudes with the regulars were just sticking them.
Yeah. Yep.
But we were getting broke off a lot because some days that's
just the way it is.
That's the nature of the business.
And I said, are you ready to take that steel? I almost punished him. I was like, you ready to take a steel leader off yet? And he was stubborn, and he finally said, this ain't going to work. But what's odd to me, and I'm not like I said, I'm not a great kingfisherman, is the stinger rig, the kingfish don't seem to mind as much.
Yeah, so the stinger rig, I would say out there to the people, if you're going to get a group of friends together and you're all pretty experienced, go get a stinger rig or make them. Personally, for me, some of the stinger rigs have too long of a stretch of main wire coming to them. So what I'll do is generally make them in advance and go shorter. Give myself like 6 to 8 inches of main wire versus 20 inches, which is to me overkill. But what I will say, like what I do, I don't want trebles with a hot kingfish or gaff kingfish coming in the boat with clients aboard. It's just something I don't want to do. And somebody gave me a piece of advice, and they said, you can still use that wire. Just take your 6-8 inches pieces that you're using, put an oversized J hook on, and just fish it that way. Yes, they're going to cut the back halves of some baits off, and you might not get that fish, but you're a lot less likely to dig a treble into your hand or a client's leg when you're doing that. So for me, that's been my go-to, and now that's what I use. And what I'll usually do is right before the kingfish are coming, if I'm really feeling fired up, is just sit down watching a baseball game or something like a spring training game on TV and twist up 20 of them. And that's usually all I need for as much as little kingfishing as I do. Yeah. It works really well. Just have an 8-inch piece of wire with like a 4 or 5/0. I just use the Mustad O'Shaughnessy hooks, ready to roll. And they're in a box, and the nice thing is they don't get tangled up with one another. They're all straight pieces. Whenever I'm in an area and kingfish are around, here, throw this on, bam, go. Yeah. And there's no treble sticking out.
There's a new line of reels coming out by Tsunami, and I can't think of the name because I'm
Evict.
Yeah, but there's one higher end than that.
Yeah.
50 they are claiming, and I'm going to start using all these once they get their shipment in, but they're claiming 50 pounds of drag on a spinning reel, which is astronomical. The most I've ever heard of is, I think, 30.
Yeah.
That seems like a lot.
Well, no, hang on. Ton. You guys have been out of touch with the specs, because that's like everyone's pushing the envelope now. Like you've got the Slammer that in their biggest sizes puts out 50, but we're talking a 10,000 size reel. But like you can get like their 4,500. It's going to give you like 40 pounds. So I think everybody's
they
like
must have really
starting to
paid
compete.
attention.
Yeah.
But before, like if you threw, well, I put it this way: I've got some hyperspeed Daiwa that we use down in Boca, and they're 38 pounds of drag.
Mhm.
They're about 8 years old. I don't use them a ton, but they that was a ton at the time.
Yeah.
So I thought the 50 pounds of drag was astronomical.
Yeah.
But again, you get to pay attention more to specs across the board. Where like we'll get sucked into one brand because that's what we use. Where you obviously working here and selling reels, you get to see a broad spectrum. So that's interesting. But they told me 50. I thought it was like that's no way. I never heard of a spinning reel that size getting dragged. But point being is you can go with smaller reels. What I will tell you is to look when you're looking to buy a reel for say Kingfish or something, but you really don't want the weight of that 6,500 reel. Go look at the specs on the reel because a lot of times they just change the spool size so you're getting
the same weight from one size.
Yes, you're getting the same.
Absolutely.
You're getting the same drag strength as the 6,500 in a 4,000, and with braid, you're able to run that smaller reel and actually get the same results without run out of line, so to speak. So look at the specs on reels, or come into a local shop like Tampa Fishing Outfitters. Ask the guys that know. This guy right here knows more about reels than I do by far as specs and brands of different reels. Guides, you can ask them, and they're typically knowledgeable on what they use, but I typically learn don't clog your brain with useless information. And if I don't use the product, I'm not going to educate myself a lot.
Right.
I mean, I'll know the stuff based on it, but somebody like you that works in here and other guys, Dustin, I think, right? These guys, they're gonna be able. That's where the local tackle shops are nice to when you're looking at buying reels and all that. You'll get a lot more information that's going to be useful. I can promise you, go to Walmart, they're not going to know anything about what we just talked about. They're going to look at you like you're dumb.
Yeah.
So
drag, we don't do drag in here.
That's that question.
Swivel or no? Good question, Steve. I'll usually make some up with both. To be honest with you, in a perfect world. The wire, I could just put a haywire twist on the end of it and, then just tie it on a clinch or a uni down to the wire, and I've never really had that wire cut through because I'm usually going up a class in wire when I make these since they're so short, that I'll go up a class in wire, and I'm usually running like a 40-pound fluoro of some type, whether it's either like in the past, some of that salmon fluoro is real hard, I've noticed. I like that 40 because it gives you... It doesn't really cut through as easy as like some softer monos or even some other types of fluoro that I've used that I haven't been fond of. I started using that 40-pound salmon fluoro from Seaguar that you recommended last year and said you use it all the time. Yeah. What I've found that I like about that is in those applications, it's stiff and hard compared to a lot of the other leader materials. And for that application, it's like money. And for using it if you're in a pinch and you need to tie it off for mackerel.
I'm going to tell you what I've done the past year. I've upped to 40-pound fluoro for inshore, and we're in the clearest part. We just went through the clearest part of the year. Yeah. And I cannot tell you that I've seen a difference.
I need to start taking your advice because
I get tired of break-offs and the snook, the amount of snook that we're catching, the fray gets bad, and I don't want to. I mean,
I'm feeling bad because this weekend I walked away from a trip on Saturday for a young man who was looking at Eckerd College to come attend here. So his dad booked me, and he wanted nothing more than a big snook. And I've been on some big snook, and I was like, man, I think we can give you a shot. And
kiss of death.
I had, and he would have been happy either way. But he hooked up twice. He straightened a hook. First time with this particular brand of hooks. I've never had one straighten. I've been through a lot of these hooks. I couldn't believe it when I saw it. And I'm like, that's a fluke. I said, here's a big bait. Throw it right back in there after I give him another rod. And the next one he lost. And that was on 30. And it just wore through. And these were two very, very big fish. And I'm just like, man, Prieto's been telling me he's been using that 40 lately. And I had 40 sitting right there. I'm like, oh, I can't believe it.
Just try it. I mean,
yeah, I know.
Every area is different, but I have seen nothing but good come out of it. I don't have to mess with my leaders. I don't lose as many hooks.
Yeah. You don't feel like the bite slowed down?
No.
Man. I get so nervous about that. I'm always I
caught more snook. I've caught more. I haven't caught a ton of big snook, like over 30s, but I've caught a lot of slot fish this year, more than I ever thought about catching last year.
Me
and
too.
it
It's
doesn't.
scary thinking that they could open the number of slot fish I'm catching.
Yeah, they'll be gone.
They won't be here long.
We have saw that that happen with our own eyes.
Well, that's a topic for another night.
Yeah.
That's something we're gonna have to get
but
into.
try the 40.
Yeah.
You know, I
bought some today, so I
Yeah.
reloaded. Because that was it for me, and then after my charter yesterday, I took my son and my mom out, and I lost a big fish on it, and I'm just like, when you just saying that, all I could think about when I lost a fish too, and when that kid lost both fish. Damn it, I should have had that 40 Prieto been telling you about. Because you said it. That was a couple months ago you told us that.
I'll tell you the challenging part with it is I'm using 10-3 braid, and I've got a ton of it just from over the years. I'm using the Finn's 10-3 braid, which I want to go to 15. I just have so much of this braid. And I'm like, so getting on a double uni, getting the 40 to cinch down on your double uni is a headache. I really got to
in the heat of it.
Light it, and I lick it and get it, and then I got to pull it because I have my knot slip through the other one before the other one tightens down.
Yep.
So some of that is my fault because I have the 10-3, and the 10-3 is good. I want to go to 15. I got 20. 20's a little big on the spool. I got some of that. What is dial with? I don't have a brain for it. J-braid, which I really like. I got some J-braid X4, but it's 20. I don't know what the diameter is, but I want to go to. They make a 10 or 15 something that's in the middle that's nice. So I need to get some of that. But I don't really want to re-spool a bunch of stuff either because I've got a whole new series of reels coming. By the way, I got two of them tarpon rods.
Yeah, they look pretty
the
cool.
Shield
We'll have to bring
carbons
those up next week.
They are legit. I mean, I haven't caught a fish, but they are legit. I'm excited. I got 4 of the Shield reels on the boat, and they have done really well.
Yeah,
I've been surprised. They've done
happy.
well.
People who have bought them have been happy with them for sure.
Yeah. So but anyways, we'll kind of that'll be to be continued. I'll tell you this with fishing in general, is I've just kind of taken the approach over the years. I've went down to 20 on snapper. I've went down to 15, and I've done it with tarpon. You go down to 60 and 80. I'm to the point now I'm like, screw it. I'm going to use heavier line, and it ain't going to – because it seems like when I go down, it doesn't matter. And when I go up, it's either going to bite or they're not. Sometimes I think we overthink some of this process, and for me at least.
Yeah.
And I don't know. The tarpon's, probably the worst of them.
Yeah.
But anyhow, good little tips. When you're on the water as much as we are, you better figure something new out, or you just suck. Are we going to lunch?
Dude, we're in overtime. We're in wing time right now, man. I'm watching the clock there. Yeah, we're at 59 minutes. We only promised 55, so you got an extra 4.
You did.
That's a big bonus. And the commercial free.
Commercial free.
So, man.
Sponsored by our good friends at TFO.
Yeah.
Guys, it's been a great show. And don't forget, we're doing the show every Monday. Spread that around.
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock.
So even in football season, we're off the air by the time Monday Night Football
Yes,
comes on.
we're like the pregame show.
We're like your first beer.
Right. We're your first.
We're your first beer.
We are your first.
Yeah, you sit down, have one beer before the game starts.
After
dinner.
You're going to need a beer with all the BS we're going to tell you on this show. Guys, it's been a great show. Until next week, tight lines.
Thanks for spending some time with us.
And we're off. Not yet. Oh, this thing. Hang on. We're still live. Everyone's listening to what I'm saying. I can't find the mouse.